From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now, here's Hotline editor, John Mercurio.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm Amy Walter. Greenville County Republicans heard from almost all of their party's declared presidential candidates on Saturday. Democrats will arrive in the state tomorrow for the party's first presidential debate, but for all this attention, does the Palmetto State still matter?
The palmetto.
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 I like to call
it's
it
like a tomato. Tomato. You call it palmetto. I call it palmetto.
Yes.
You know, that's a very good question you ask, Amy Walter, and I'm glad you asked me.
It looks like a palm tree. Some people might call it a palm tree, but it's a palmetto.
It is a palmetto tree. It's a beautiful tree. It's actually shorter than a typical palm tree, and it's a little wider, sturdier. It can survive a lot of the sort of hurricanes that hits the South Carolina coast. What was your question?
Anyway,
Your
it's
question
about just
is
does South
the
Carolina
Palmetto State.
matter?
You know, it's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked me that question.
Yes.
Republicans there this weekend. John McCain obviously spending a lot of time there during his announcement tour later this week. 6 stops in South Carolina, more than any other state where he's doing his announcement kickoff. Democrats, of course, holding their debate on Thursday in Orangeburg. Ultimately, though, it is entirely possible to sketch out a scenario whereby South Carolina, despite all the hoopla about it being the first in the South primary in 2008, might have very, very little impact on the election. Look, it's between Iowa and New Hampshire where you're seeing a lot, it's between Iowa, I'm sorry, which you're seeing a lot of attention put on Iowa and a lot of focus, obviously a lot of candidates really putting a lot of stake in Iowa, McCain especially. And then the February 5th sort of tsunami that we're seeing, which is where I think you're going to see most of the money ultimately focused by the front-running candidates. In South Carolina, you have a weird situation where if Barack Obama is even remotely viable at any point in 2008, which we presume he will be, he's going to win. He's going to win in South Carolina. Right. Hillary Clinton is probably not going to win the South Carolina primary. Barack Obama, and he could actually start to run away with it. You're already starting to see that. John Edwards, of course, putting in a pretty good fight there too. And on the Republican side, it's a must-win state for McCain. You're going to see the McCain campaign. If there's any, again, if he's remotely viable, he's going to win.
So this is sort of that fighting the last war piece, right? Where McCain going there and saying, if this was the wall or whatever firewall last time, then I have to win it.
I have to win it this time.
But it's a different calendar.
It's a different calendar, and there's so much focus being put not just on South Carolina, but on the later on the February 5th date. So much of that, with the squeezing between Iowa and February 5th, I really wonder.
What is on September 5th that you're obsessed with? Is there something
September
going on
5th is a good friend of mine's birthday.
Okay. Shout out to
that good friend. It's hard for me to see how South Carolina ultimately matters as much as people think it will be.
But don't you think that's the case sort of for so many of these states? Obviously not for Iowa and New Hampshire, but if somebody's starting to run away with one of these places, and if on the February 5th states, there's some that look like they're more competitive than others, we're going to be talking about different states throughout the primary process where we thought this was going to be so definitive. My problem in so much of the coverage, especially for Republicans, this idea about having California or New Jersey, these other states in the mix, is the sense that, well, these are going to be more important for moderate Republicans.
Sure.
But the fact is, unless they allow independent voters to come into the primary process, Republicans there in California are probably just as conservative as Republicans everywhere else, just as Democrats are conservative. Are liberal. If you're talking about activist members of the party.
Sure.
So I think the way that you see the emphasis is going to depend on, just who's competing where, which states look to be the closest. And we know that, for example, there have been years where Iowa just got written off and we looked ahead to the next state. We don't hear a whole lot about Nevada. I think the assumption is, well, it's just not going to be sort of as definitive or as some of the other states.
Probably the biggest victim of the February 5th tsunami, I think. I think you're right about that. One last point, and I hate to be the cold water guy, but so much focus, so many people in the media going down to Orangeburg to attend this Democratic debate. Look, you're going to have how many up there?
300,000.
You're going to have you're going to have 300,000 debates, and you're going to have 300,000 candidates up on stage together at the same time. I don't see. There was so much criticism of the forum that was held in Las Vegas a couple of months ago because it didn't put the candidates head to head. It's almost better, I think, in this stage of the campaign not to put them head to head when you've got them all up there together. There's not going to be any interaction, so I won't be there, and since I won't be there, I don't think it matters.
Wow.
Even though we are sending some of our best Hotline staff to go there. Anyway, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Hotline TV.